So today we're going to do a basic oil change on a KLR650 and also adjust the Doohickey. Alright, what you're going to need is a funnel, oil, at least 2.5 quarts. I use Used-Rotella T6 5W30, a filter. You need a 8mm socket, a 17mm socket, ratchet, a flathead screwdriver, a rubber mallet, and a little hook like this. You might not need this, but it's good to have. Alright, paper towels and some gloves. Alright, so let's get started by loosening the oil nut underneath the bike. Alright, feels loose. Yep, there it goes. Alright, it's loose now, so make sure you get your oil pan under there. Keep on twisting it. And it's about ready to go any second now. And there it goes. Alright. So while that's draining, I'm going to throw the oil nut back in this bin. While that's draining, just go ahead and grab your 8mm socket and the rubber mallet. Come over to the right side of the bike. And this is where you're going to find the doohickey. It's going to be on the crankshaft here on the very bottom. You should have a little rubber plug over it, just like that. If you pop that off, you'll see the bolt right there. And once you get to it, there it is. You want to give it a good full turn. And then once that's loose, it's right around this area. Just give it a couple hits. And then do you hear that? You hear that little click? You might not heard it, but I heard it, and that means that spring readjusted itself and gave tension to the chain in there. All right. So we're gonna want to tighten it. I usually just hand tight this. There's a spec you got to do it too. It's in the manual if you want to get really technical with it, but just give it a nice snug. That should be good. Tightening. And where is our rubber cover? There it is. And you just go ahead and throw that cover back on. All right, now let's go back on this side. And go ahead and start untightening these two bolts. This is where your oil filter is, right in here. There's that one. There's that one. This is where we're going to use the flathead screwdriver. There's a little notch right there. Just throw it right under there. And just wiggle this cover loose. And there it goes. Whoa! A little oil spill there. Alright. So as you pull out the oil filter, you'll notice on this little pin, this little groove spot. Make sure when you put this back in, you put it in this way. Let's get some of this out here. I'm making a mess. I could take one of these towels, just kind of get the rest of this oil out of there. All right. grab our filter. Shoot oil down all this rubber on this new filter. Put this pin back in. Put your filter in there, nice and snug. And there is a rubber ring around this cover. And it looks like it's in good shape. There's no, there's no cracking in it. It looks fairly decent. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that on there. And when you put this cover back on, you're gonna see an arrow on the top. There's a little notch right there. Just go ahead and line that up on the top, and it's gonna not slide in there. Once you have it aligned, just give it a little nick, and there it goes. That should be good. Get your bolts back in there. And I usually just hand tighten them. You can check the exact spec online or in the manual. When you tighten these back up, use the 8mm. You know what I like to do is once that oil's drained, just go ahead and grab the bike, and if you check down on the pan, if you start rocking it a little bit, you'll just get a little bit more pouring out, just to get the last bits and pieces of that old dirty oil out. Alright, so once that is out, go ahead and grab your drain plug. If you want to get a fresh washer on there, press washer, whatever you like, and throw on that nut to get back in there. But I throw in the same one and it works out okay. Alright, so here we go. Let's get this out of the way. And let me start screwing on the old nut. And you should be able to hand tighten this almost all the way. That's when you know you're actually catching the thread. So when it's going in nice and smooth, and you can almost get it all the way tight. Alright. And that is that. Let's get our 17mm back on here. And I believe the correct torque on here is about 30 pounds of torque. What I like to use, I just like grab the ratchet with my hand right here and just give it a nice snug fit, and that should do it. And last but not least, don't forget to put your fresh oil in there. It calls for about 2.5 quarts. And what I like to do is fill it up. If you see these two notches, when the bike is laying perfectly horizontal, the oil should be right between those two notches. So I'll go ahead and pour this oil in. Alright, if you watch that little window on the bottom there, you should eventually see that fill up. Alright, let's tilt the bike a little bit. Alright, if you look at the window, you can see the oil in there. And I'm holding it almost in the center of their balance. You can see it's right in the middle of the top line and the bottom line. You want it right about there. What I should do is go ahead and tighten this up for a second. Fire up the bike a little bit. Let that oil cycle through there just for a sec. What that will do, we'll just cycle oil through the filter. Let it settle down for a second. And if you look on that little indicator, you can see it It went down a little bit, so I'll probably just add a little bit more. That should do it. There you go, the quick oil change and a doohickey adjustment on the KLR650.